What's up, loves, and welcome back to the show. I am super grateful to have Christine Hassler on the podcast today. Not only is she a dear friend, but she is one of the most talented teachers that I know. So, Christine, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, it's really my pleasure.
Every time I am in your presence or talk to you or we text or whatever, I'm just like, wow, I have such an appreciation for who you are and what you bring forth because the birthplace of a lot of all of your transmissions is so pure and just from
Mm.
love. So thank you for just being a walking little earth angel, you know?
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you so much. I had a lot of amazing teachers that helped me step into what I feel is my purpose, and it just brings me so much joy to connect with you, connect with your audience, and we're all earth angels in our own way. It's just a matter
So
of getting
true.
out of our way and recognizing that we are, getting silencing that inner critic that usually has the microphone, and realizing, hey, wait a second, I'm
Mm.
actually a pretty unique, special human being, and I have a purpose here on the planet.
Yeah, give the earth angel the microphone, you guys. Come
Hmm.
on, not the little
Hmm.
kid. Who was your biggest influence in your path of development?
Oh, there's been so many people, but my biggest has to be my first. So when I was about 22, I was complaining about my alcoholic addict boyfriend at the time to a
Mhm.
girlfriend at lunch. And she said, listen, you're really upset about this. I don't think this is a healthy relationship. I just went to go see this woman. She lives out in the valley. I lived in LA at the time. And I think she'd be really good for you. She's not a therapist. I don't really know what she is. This is before we had the term life coach. And I had been seeing shrinks since I was 11. So it's kind of over therapy. No,
Mhm.
not dissing therapy. I just felt like I was in a loop with it. And so I was like, oh, I have nothing to lose. So I drove out to the valley, which is a big deal when you live in LA to drive out to the
Yeah.
valley for an appointment.
You're like,
And
whoa,
you're like,
that's a
whoa,
day
I'm
trip.
crossing over the hill into a different area code here. So she saw people at her house, which was very unconventional. And I was very judgy of that. She opened the door. She had sweatpants on, more judgment from me. She takes me into her son's room for our session, more judgment
Oh my
for me
God.
about how unprofessional she is. And then she sits down and she's like, baby, how can I help? And she looked at me, and it was the first time, especially in a professional setting like that, that I didn't feel judged. She
Mm,
actually looked at me like there was nothing wrong with me. And I
mm,
was so used to going to doctors and therapists and professionals with, I thought I had something wrong, and they looked at me as something they needed to fix. And
mm.
I just felt total unconditional love from her. And I saw her every week for nearly 14 years until she died. She trained me. She was the one that really helped me get off antidepressants. I broke up with her a few times because she would say things that I wasn't ready to hear that
Yeah,
I
of
didn't
course.
agree with.
Of course. Yeah.
But she taught me how to feel my emotions, how to release my emotions. I learned so much from her, and her work definitely lives through me. Her name is Mona Miller, and I don't know, I don't even know if I'd be here today, but I definitely wouldn't be doing what I'm doing today if it hadn't been for her.
Wow. You know, positive projection of just people just projecting energetically that we are perfect and we are
Mhm.
whole and we are so deserving of unconditional love. What that can do for our nervous system is just incredible. And the beautiful thing is we could also do that for ourselves.
Yeah. And sometimes we've forgotten, and we need someone to hold that mirror.
Mm,
And this is what I tell all coaches and therapists is, we know you want to help. Like, you're committed to serve, but don't think you become a better coach or a better therapist by fixing a problem.
mm,
Really, the value of just holding someone in unconditional love and seeing the essence of who they are and seeing them as whole and complete,
mm,
it is life changing, and it opens the door for the deeper work. And that's how any of us should approach being the client as well.
mhm.
I won't say never because I'm human, but I intend to go to any practitioner not from the place of I'm broke, please fix me,
Mhm.
but from the place of I'm here to learn and I'm here to grow.
Yeah. Mm.
There's another growth opportunity. There's something I'm dealing with and I'm here to grow. But my come from has to be from that place of I'm whole and complete and there's nothing wrong with me, because we live in such a fix it society. I
Mhm.
mean, your photo isn't right, you fix it. If anything that's not right, we fix. And we don't want to apply that to personal development because it just reinforces the idea that something is broken.
Mm.
And I know, after experiencing it firsthand, like if I walk in, especially on the therapeutic or coaching level, if I'm thinking of working with someone, if I feel judged in any way, if I feel like the space isn't safe, I'm out of there,
Mhm.
because I don't rate the effectiveness of a practitioner on their skill set or what they can identify as a problem. It's really the space someone holds. The skill set and all that is super important as well, but we've got to start with the space that we hold, and we've got to learn how to do that for ourselves too. But
Mm.
we forget. So we need those people to hold that mirror.
I'm in this program called Luminous Awareness Institute.
Mhm.
Have you
Yep.
heard of
Oh
that?
yeah. Oh yeah. Lots of my
Yeah.
friends are in it. Yep.
Oh my gosh,
Mhm.
it's life-changing, truly life-changing. And there's a practice in there that we do called minis, and it's essentially just holding pure presence in the in front of someone else, and just like shining love and appreciation,
Mm.
and just
Mhm.
being this really healthy mirror for someone to just witness the arising of their emotionality and of their state. And no words are exchanged, maybe a few
Yep.
like hums and haws, just to like really let them know that we are here. There is nothing more juicy for the nervous system.
Mhm.
Like there's no words exchange. It's absolutely amazing. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm like sipping the teat of like mother nature. I'm like, give
Mhm.
me more. This is so great.
Yep.
It's
Yep.
like this beautiful co-nourishing agendaless engagement is sometimes all we need as humans.
Yeah, it really is. And that's what gets us closest to God, is that energetic of pure love. And love really heals all. It really, really, really does. And like we said, the tools are important. The
Mm.
awareness is important, but the come from is even more important. And if we can really come from that place of holding that love for ourselves and others, and the better we get at holding it for others, the better we get at holding it for ourselves. I've become way less judgmental of myself over the years. And I used to be really good at it. Like it was my
Mhm.
career to beat the shit out of myself to make me better. That was my
Mhm.
recipe for success. Just be super hard on myself. And that's going to get me where I need to go.
Mhm.
And I've since realized that although it may push me into a direction that my ego thinks I need to go, it totally depletes my soul and reinforces that self beat and that self hate. And it's been through holding that space for others that I've realized, whoa, I can do this for me too. And
Mm.
that's liberating, and that's so deeply healing in our relationship with ourself. When I think about self-love, because I get asked that question a lot, what self-love, how do you do it? I think sometimes people confuse self-care with self-love.
Mhm.
Self-care is the thing like eating well and doing your meditation and your breath work and all those things. Self-love is radical acceptance. It's
Mm.
acceptance of whatever is happening inside of you. It's acceptance of that inner critic. It's
Mm.
acceptance of the depression. It's acceptance of the eating disorder.
Mhm.
It's acceptance of all of it, and being able to love ourselves no matter what is really, to me, radical acceptance.
This is so good. So I met you when you already did this work. And so
Mhm.
when you share that with me of like, wow, you were really, really hard on yourself,
Mhm.
I don't resonate with that, because I see this version of you that is, maybe we're always working parts and pieces in our system, but you radiate self love to me when I'm around you. So I'm curious to know when that was, and what was the catalyst for you to realize that was going on, and what was the shift in order to be where you're at now?
I think it was a long unfolding process. It wasn't one significant event. It was the continual work. I like to compare personal development to learning a really hard language.
Mm.
And unless you move to that country and completely immerse yourself in it and it's all you do, it takes a while to become fluent. And so it's taken me a while to become fluent. And I still have my moments. Like I've been dealing with a headache for a week. And this is not common for me.
Mhm.
I usually can get to the emotional psychosomatic thing. I don't know if it's allergies in Austin, but I woke up this morning beating myself up because I'm like, what am I doing to cause my headache?
Mm.
And luckily, my husband called me out and just said, this isn't your fault. Like, this is just something that's going on. And it kind of brought me back to that place of self love. So it's still in there. Like, I still have those tendencies that come out, but it's much less violent than it used to be.
Mm.
So, back in the day, especially in my early 20s, my initial career was I was an agent in Hollywood. And so I was very much moved out to LA when I was 20 years old on the fast track, was promoted by the time I was 24, was dating the head of a movie studio, was really living the fast life.
Mhm.
And some part of me thought that that critic was how I got all that done. Like, if I'm not hard on myself, then fill in the blank with something scary. I'll fail. I'll lose my job. I'll fall behind. My boyfriend will dump me. I won't be enough. The list went on and on and on. So I got addicted to that critical voice because it made me feel safe in so many
Yeah.
ways. So a big part of it was losing everything at one point, quitting my job, having my fiance dump me, health stuff, disowned by my family, financial crisis, all that crashing down as a wake up call of, all right, well, I thought this was working, but it seems like it's a house of cards.
Mhm.
And that's when I dove in even deeper into personal development and had people like Mona really call me out and help me. We all have this voice inside our head. We have many voices inside our head, and we don't step back and observe that it's just a voice. It's not really us.
Mm.
And so a big part for me was actually observing my mind and hearing my own thoughts and slowing down and going, what voice is that? Oh, wow. That's the inner critic voice. Okay, what voice is that? Oh, wait, that's a compassionate voice. That sounds
Mm.
pretty good. What voice is that? Ooh, that sounds a lot like my dad. What voice is that? Well, that one sounds like my mom. And so that was a big part of it, was just observing it. And I think a lot of us want to switch to change right away. Like, I really wanted to get to a place of self-love, but first I had to accept that I wasn't there yet. And I had to observe those different voices inside my head. And another massive big part of it was lifting the rug where I had swept all my hurt and all my shame and all my anger and go, okay, time to deal with this. And emotional release work, which I'm big on teaching, which is different than catharsis. Catharsis is hitting a boxing bag and screaming in your car, screaming into a pillow. All that's great. It's a release, but it's not actual emotional processing. Emotional processing is putting the words with the emotion, allowing ourselves to go back in time, not relive an experience because that can be re-traumatizing, but giving ourselves a voice about the experience that happened. I had to get to my anger. I had to get to my sadness. I had to get to my grief, because a lot of what the inner critic's job was to fill my mind and keep me going so hard and pressure me so much that I was distracted from all the repressed emotions that I hadn't dealt with. So when I
Mm.
finally dealt with that anger and dealt with that shame and dealt with that grief and dealt with a lot of the repressed, suppressed memories, again, without having to relive them, it was like I found this massive emotion that I never knew existed, which is compassion. It's like,
Mm.
whoa, this
Mhm.
compassion thing, co with passion, suffering, being with suffering, ours or someone else's. This is amazing. This feels
Mm.
so good. And I started to really amp up that compassion. And when I'd hear the inner critic, I'd have the voice of compassion come in and go, oh, hi, inner critic. I know you just think you're doing your job. And
Mm.
I'd talk to the inner critic, because criticizing our inner critic doesn't work. Trying to mute our inner critic doesn't work, because it's a part of us that thinks it's protecting us. So we need to have compassion for it and compassion for our actions. So I blended that mentally accepting where I was with that physical, emotional, psychosomatic feeling, that energetic of compassion. And I
Mm.
still think compassion is my superpower. Like, I appreciate the acknowledgement that you gave me, that you feel like I radiate self-love. What I feel like really am radiating so much is compassion, just really being able to hold that space. And trust me, I have been to some dark places inside myself. I have been to some places where I have thought, oh my goodness, am I going to get out of this? Like, did I
Wow.
just break my brain?
Mm,
Where did I
mhm,
just go? But
mhm.
it's been the medicine of compassion, that voice inside that's like, it's okay. You're safe. You're safe is a big
Mhm.
word for me, or big 2 words for me.
Yeah, yeah.
And that energetic of compassion. And that is what has helped amp up the self-love, because
Mhm.
I have learned how to take care of myself. And I think
Oh,
that's what self-love really is.
that's so good. It's like you are the medicine to
Right.
yourself.
That's right.
Mm. You said when you were sharing that, you said my husband, and I just got like this like excited feeling because I remember I don't know if you'll remember this. I When I first moved to San Diego, this must have been 3 or 4 years ago, and you were living down by the beach. You had this
Yep.
beautiful beach view, and you and I went
Mhm.
for a walk. And I think that was the first time we'd ever hung
Yep.
out. And you were sharing with me at the time about how you are wanting to manifest a man. And at that time, I believe you and Steph hadn't even met.
No.
Yeah. And so now you're in this incredible marriage with this amazing human. And, I think a lot of people, whether they're connected with you on social media, they're viewing you thinking like, how was she able to do that? How was she able to create that for herself? And I know you've created a framework and a journey and a program to help people do this exact same thing, because it's the journey that you went on. So I'd
Mhm.
love for you just to give us a little snapshot from when you and I went on that walk to now being happily married to an amazing man who is your soulmate.
Mhm.
What was the journey? Give us the sort of like the
Mm.
high level journey.
Oh, yeah, I love talking about love. I think relationships are such talk about learning ground. I think relationships
Mm.
and parenting are the 2 places where if you wanna learn, sign up for those.
Oh gosh.
So I got married when I was like 27. I met my ex-husband after my fiance dumped me. So if you're tracking this, I've been engaged 3 times.
There we go.
Broken engagement once, divorced twice, and now married to Steph, which is definitely my partner. So I was very much in my 20s, and that girl who believed that if I wasn't married by 30, I was a failure.
Mm.
So I was in a rush to get married. I was very much on a timeline. And I also had such a broken heart and bruised ego from the broken engagement. So when I met my ex-husband, who's a wonderful man, it was like, he fits. This is perfect. He ticks
Mm.
all the boxes. Amazing.
Mm.
Now, PS at the time, I was still on antidepressants. I was just about to go through my Saturn return. I had written my first book. I was coaching people, but I hadn't gone through my grad school program. I was like kindergarten, maybe even
Mm.
preschool in terms of awakening. I thought I knew a lot more than I did. So it was perfect. It was perfect for the time. But then 2 years into the marriage, I started to really wake up. I got off antidepressants. I was in grad school. I really started consuming personal development and spirituality in a different way. Now, I did not do a good job of enrolling him. Instead of just walking the talk, which is my advice for anyone who says, how do I get my partner to wake up? I'm like, don't throw him books. Don't drag him to personal events. Don't get on your soapbox. Don't be his coach and tell him how his dad screwed him up. Just live it. Walk the talk. But I didn't do that with my ex. I told him what he should be doing. I judged him. I
Mm.
nitpicked. I criticized because I was scared and I didn't know. I didn't know.
Mm.
And eventually we ended up getting divorced because I felt like he wasn't emotionally available. And I think he felt like I was just judging him and making his life hell.
Mm.
We had a
Mm.
very amicable divorce, but I was humiliated in so many ways. I'm like, I'm failing in relationship. I've got one broken engagement, one divorce, and I'm supposed to be this life coach who, tells people how to get what they want. And I really am failing at it.
Mm.
And what I realized when I got divorced at, I think I was about 31, is I'd never not really been in a relationship. I'd never not been in a relationship. My longest span of time from 17 to 31, not being in a relationship, was 4 months.
Wow.
And it was time to focus on me. It was time to break old belief systems that I needed a man for financial security, for worth, to be chosen. Like there was a lot I was breaking through, both generationally and collectively, the belief systems of like what it means to be a woman and why I needed a man. So there's a lot I was unpacking there. And I knew when I got divorced that I was going to spend a significant amount of time single. I was going to build my career. I was going to learn more about myself. I was going to dive deeper so that when I got married again, and I knew I wanted to get married again, I wouldn't get divorced. And I also really dove into masculine feminine dynamics. And when I was ready to start seriously dating again, it did not go well. I ran this pattern of going after the emotionally unavailable guy who then would say he wasn't interested in relationship. He'd dump me. And then a month later, I'd see him on Instagram with like this hot, what I would describe as a hot mess kind of girl being like, I'm in love, I am engaged. And this happened over and over. And I just like, what is wrong with me? So a lot of what happened in my single years was unpacking patterns that I hadn't really gotten to because I had just been avoiding them by being in relationships. So the pattern of going after that emotionally unavailable guy that was coming from my 14-year-old girl who never got the guy she wanted. She never got the popular guy. And my 14-year-old was picking a lot of them, from unresolved stuff with my dad, from unresolved stuff from exes, just from a lot of unresolved stuff. So my picker was off. Like what I was attracting was not based on where I wanted to go. It was based on where I had been. It was based on my issues. And so that was a big shift for me when I was like, okay, I've got to start drawing in the kind of relationship based on my vision and my values, based on where I want to go. And I got really serious about it. I was clear I didn't want to just fool around. I didn't want to just date for fun. And I started taking programs like dating coaches and programs. And Samantha, I got just such crap advice that I thought I needed to believe. Like some of the advice I got was, well, you're a really successful woman, so you're going to need a beta man. You're going to need like an artist type, somebody that's more in his feminine. And I remember I heard this and I just cried because I was like, I don't want nothing wrong with artists, but I can't picture myself with like an artist, I don't know, with long hair. I just picture this guy with long hair wearing a bandana, like very thin, not able to pay his bills. Like that's what I pictured in my head. And I'm
Christine,
like,
Eric calls those soy boys.
Yes. I'm like, I don't want a man bun. I can't do it. I wanted a man. And part of that desire was I was so in my masculine, which is really a protective, adaptive strategy. I wanted someone to outman me. Like I didn't want to become more masculine. So that was one of the things. The other thing, I was in my like mid to late 30s at this time. And the other thing that was said to me is, oh, Christine, like you're going to have to date someone 50 plus. No one's going to want a woman your age. You're expecting too much. You're not going to find a conscious, successful man who you're also attracted to, just stuff like that. And the dating advice I got was more about adapting myself to what they wanted. I would like write a profile that I thought was sincere and what I wanted. And my dating coach would be like, no, you're going to scare people off with this. Let's make it more fun. And that's not me. I'm not the like, I like long walks on the beach and I like long walks on the beach. I was after depth and commitment. So finally got to the point where I was, sorry, this is becoming so long. I'll wrap it up.
This is so
Finally,
good. No, I'm into it.
Okay. Finally, I got to the point where I was like, this advice sucks. This advice is not getting me what I want. I'm contorting myself into a pretzel. I'm following the stupid 3-date rule. One of my dating coaches was like, you need to go through 3 dates with a man because you never really know until the 3rd date. I'm an intuitive woman. I knew in 5 seconds if this was a yes or a no, but I would force myself to go on the 3rd date. So there's just a lot of those things that I just ditched. And I decided I am going to come up with my own plan and my own program for how to call this in. Like I've built a career. Like, why can't I do this my own way? I've built a career not doing it the way everybody told me to do it. So I'm going to just follow my intuition. So I combined everything I knew about personal development. I took some of the good stuff from masculine, feminine dynamics and dating and relating, and then just really kind of intuited and really felt out how I wanted to call him in.
Mm.
And one of the things that was part of that was leaving LA. I left LA. I moved to that beach house that you met me in.
Yeah.
And that's when I was really serious about developing this. A year into living there, my landlord unexpectedly kicked me out because she accused me of things like she was crazy, legit,
I
actually crazy.
remember that. I
Yeah, it was a very
remember
traumatic
that.
event. But I
Yeah.
remember, even though I was very upset, I remember thinking something's happening here. Like
Mm.
the universe is up to something, because I was
Mhm.
really intent on calling in my person. I was ready for that. And I would communicate with him and talk to him. This is all stuff we teach in the program. And from getting kicked out, I'd always had this pull to Australia. I went to Australia a couple times, thought my guy was there, ended up fracturing my foot, came back, was like subletting, and finally went to my friend Renee's house because they were moving out and she was talking to me about taking over her lease. And her husband was sitting at his computer working on a startup, and on the computer screen were the pictures of everybody that was involved. And I saw this one man's picture from across the table, and I said, "Who is that? I know him."
Mm.
And I'd never met him in my life. They said his name. He lived in Perth, Australia, which is like as far Australia as you can possibly get. It's way west. It couldn't be farther from California. And my friend Renee said, "You know what, Christine, he's really cool. Do you want me to introduce you?" And I
Mm.
had a rule at that time, not a rule, a guideline. It's
Mhm.
another thing we teach, is making up your own dating guidelines, that I wouldn't be set up with someone unless they were ready for a relationship. Like I wasn't
Yeah.
interested in the guys that were just dating.
Mhm.
And so she asked him if he was ready for a relationship, and he said yes. And just a PS here. So while I was really in this calling him in process, I had a very powerful healing session once with some somatic healers I was working with, where we really were working on releasing blocks to my husband and my family. And I had a very profound experience where I felt him.
Mm.
And I said to him, "It's time, hurry up."
Oh,
And
oh, I just got shivers.
we tracked that because I had the day on
Mm.
my calendar, because it was an appointment. And we tracked it after we met to a day he was in a meditation, and he came out of the meditation and he's like, "I'm ready for my queen. Like,
Oh my
I'm
goodness.
ready." And
Mm.
it was only a month after that I saw his picture on the computer screen. We were introduced. We had a 2-month relationship over WhatsApp, met in Mykonos, Greece, for the first time in person.
Mm.
He opened the door. He took me in his arms. It felt like home. It didn't feel like butterflies or fireworks. It felt like home.
I'm literally crying right now.
Oh,
Oh my gosh.
and that was it. That
Oh.
was it. We moved in together that day, and that was it. Done.
Okay, you said something so profound, and we gotta pull this out because
Mm,
this is so important. It felt like home. It didn't feel like fireworks and butterflies.
correct.
Christine, when I met Eric, there was this piece of me because I was so addicted to the toxic
Yep.
bonding,
Yep.
like fireworks and oh my God,
Charming
he didn't call me back.
narcissist.
Holy
Yep.
fuck.
Hmm.
Yeah. That when I met Eric, I was like, it feels like home.
Hmm.
Is this wrong? Like, where's the
Yeah.
excitement? Like, I want the fireworks.
Yep.
Oh,
Yep. Yeah, but those fireworks, I call those issue-based relationships. And those fireworks come from unresolved issues, because
mm,
those kind of people are important because they teach us massive lessons. And without those fireworks, there's no way in hell we'd ever go for that person. We need that
mm,
passion to go and then hopefully wake up and play out those issues. But I've learned, and I tell people and the women in the program, if you're attracted to someone on a 9, 10 level initially, and it feels like a drug, and you have
mm,
anxiety over like what to write in your text, or check your phone every 5 minutes to see if they texted you back, or don't really have clarity, run in the opposite direction.
yeah. Mm,
Because the cool thing about having that feeling like home, where the attraction's like 5, 6, 7, is
mhm,
that with the emotional intimacy and with the consciousness, the attraction grows. It gets
mm.
better. And it's not coming from a wounded place. It's actually coming from your healthy emotional self and your healthy sexuality, not your childhood issues. So it's a big difference.
Mm. So was your attraction to Steph when you first met like a 5, 6, 7?
At my heart, it was like a 10. The
Mm-hmm.
physical attraction was probably, so I'm comparing it to the fireworks, right? I'm
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
comparing it. Like I
Yeah.
can think of a guy who he was literally a drug.
Yeah.
Like I couldn't wait for another hit.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like that with Steph, but it had been so long since I'd known that healthy attraction. It was
Mm.
almost like my body forgot what it was like. And I have to say, like, the attraction to him grew and
Mm.
grew and grew and continues to. And it's like multidimensional attraction
Yeah. Yeah.
now.
Yeah. That's so beautiful. My ex was that like firework, like
Mm-hmm.
you are my drug type of feeling. And it was toxic.
Yes. Yeah, it's toxic. And sometimes it's toxic and sometimes it's the man isn't ready.
Mm.
And this is one thing I've learned about, and this is a massive generalization I'm going to make, but it's based on a lot of observation and talking to thousands of people. Men, they're either ready or they're not. They
Mm-hmm.
really, really are. And if they're still in that place where the commitment is scary and because I think everybody has commitment issues, men really struggle with freedom and commitment. And if they haven't resolved that inside themselves, if they haven't really explored their shadow of what fear gets triggered when they think about commitment, then they're really not ready and they're
Mm.
really not fully emotionally available. And so, yeah, sometimes it's super toxic. And sometimes it's just like this man, no matter how great he may be, and no matter how great you may be,
Mm-hmm.
he's not ready and therefore he's not available. And I really thought that my love could transform him. No, no, mm-mm,
Yeah.
no.
Do you talk about that in your program? Because I think that's like a
Yes.
really important thing of, women having this idea, this illusion that let me just try a little bit harder and maybe I'll win
Yes.
him over.
We
Yeah.
really talk about that. Well, first of all, we unpack dad, we unpack exes, and every woman, when they start in their program, they're like, I've done so much work on this. And I'm like, trust me, I said the same thing, but we're going to take it a level deeper and we're going to help you really clear it. So, because again, so many people have tons of awareness, but not the embodied integration that actually creates the shift.
Yeah.
So we really start with that. And then we get into masculine, feminine dynamics and sexuality. And so many women, this is another really important point, because the other thing I was told way too much is, Christine, you're too masculine. And I
Mm-hmm.
get so pissed off when someone said that, because I don't relate to myself as a masculine person. And I would say, well, just because I'm successful, why does that make me masculine?
Mm-hmm.
What it really was, what they were really seeing, was a protective mask. So most women at our core essence were feminine, but because of things that happen, ways we were shamed, ways we were hurt, ways we were judged, ways we thought we needed to be in order to get validation or approval, we've put on a mask. And often that appears masculine, but it's really just a protective strategy. So when women ask, and this is what we teach in the program, they're like, how do I be more feminine? It's not like we teach tons of feminine practices. We teach feminine practices. We teach pleasure practices, how to become more sensual, comfortable in your body, all those things. But we don't have to really teach too much how to get out of your masculine, because it's not really the masculine, it's a protective strategy. And once you do the healing work to realize that, to help that part of you that thinks it needs the protective strategy realize that it actually doesn't, then
Mm-hmm.
you naturally soften without losing any of your success, any of your power, any of your sovereignty, any of your fire, any of your edge. You get to keep all that, but not have this protective strategy that sometimes appears masculine. Does that make sense?
Oh, completely, completely. This has been one that I've been working on for the last like 5 years, because I would approach business from a very masculine, protected place, and
Yeah.
it's it's taken a lot of courage actually to run my business in the feminine.
Yeah.
And I can hear that voice of like, well, what if someone tries to screw you over? And there's like
Yep.
this, like it almost is like if I'm not attuned to soften, it's really easy to harden, because that's been my survival strategy and my coping strategy. But
Yep.
being with Eric, he is incredibly masculine. And so I always know when there's any sort of like tension in our relationship, a lot of the time it's because I have like I'm falling into that sort of protective place. And
Yep.
then I have to like really, to your point, like really be so compassionate with myself and allow myself to feel the compassion so that I can soften, so that we can get back in connection.
Yep. Exactly.
Mm,
Exactly.
yeah. Gosh, it's because and I love what you shared as well of like the feminine, juicy core. Like that's
Mm.
our true essence. And, you
Mm-hmm.
know,
Mm-hmm.
through conditioning and we can harden.
It is. It is. I was talking, I was on my friend Aubrey's podcast. It hasn't come out yet, but we did a podcast on sacred union. And I was talking about how I really thought being more in my feminine was a demotion. Like it was the less than thing. And what I realized is, oh my gosh, there is so much power in the feminine. We've just been disconnected from it for so long that we've
Mhm.
forgotten how incredibly powerful the feminine is. And I'm sure you've noticed this in your business too. Like I've become more successful with less depletion, and the success has been more aligned.
Mm.
A lot of my success in the beginning of my career was like corporate speaking and corporate this and spokesperson and all that, and doing also the personal development. But I was in the corporate world a lot, which was great. It was successful, it paid great money. I loved that. My ego loved it,
Mm.
but it wasn't so aligned with what I'm here to do and
Yeah.
what truly lights me up. And so I've noticed that shift. And I've also noticed in my relationship, I mostly hold the feminine pole. I mean, sometimes we switch where I'm in more the masculine, he's in more the feminine. But
Mhm.
I'm married to a masculine dude. He's half Greek, half Italian, Australian. Like he's a dude. And he really holds that masculine pole. And it's been amazing to not have to fight
Mm.
for that and to really relax into
Yeah.
that feminine and realize how much influence I have in the relationship by being in that feminine, and how much I get what I want and need from my husband, not by judging him, not by micromanaging him, not by controlling him, which is often hard because
Mhm.
I'm also a Virgo. But I
Mhm.
really have to step back from that and just be in that feminine place of vulnerability and surrender and love and compassion, and also discernment and
Mhm.
fierceness. The feminine is that
Mhm.
too. But it's amazing to see in a relationship all the stuff I study with masculine and feminine really coming true. And
Yeah.
I had resistance to it when I first learned about it, because I remember reading Alison Armstrong's book, The Queen's Code, which I recommend to everybody that takes our program, and we talk about it. And every time the women get to this book in the program, they get triggered because they're like, this is 1950s submissive housewife bullshit. And I'm like, I hear you, sister. I thought the same thing. I was so mad. I was
Mm.
like, who is this woman? She's awful. She's putting feminism back like 20 years. But then I read it again and I'm like, oh, I
Mm.
get it. I really get what this book is about. And I get what she's saying. And I really get how what often seems less powerful from the outside is actually more powerful than we could ever imagine.
Oh my gosh, Alison Armstrong did this like 4-hour workshop at a Tony
Mm,
Robbins conference
mm.
in Maui last year. And holy crap, that woman is so good.
She's so good. I love her. I love her. I learned so much from her.
Oh, you know what? I need you to come back on the podcast to talk about inner child stuff.
Oh, sure. Happy to. I love inner child stuff.
My audience wanted you to talk about that. And I'm like, oh my gosh, did we go through an hour already? Holy moly.
Well, I'm happy to come back anytime and talk about inner child. Inner child is so juicy. And, for me, there's nothing I haven't, well, I won't say nothing, but I've tried a lot of things in personal development. You name it, I've probably tried it. And on myself and with my clients. Well, obviously I've done more myself because I would much rather myself be the guinea pig than people I work with. But my point in this is inner child work is where it's at. And inner child work is also very sacred and needs to be treated as that. I think there's a lot of ways we can get into inner child work that isn't helpful, such as reliving trauma. That's not something I recommend. But the inner child, like having that relationship with the inner child and being that inner parent to ourselves, that to me has created more shifts in my life than anything else that I've done. So that work is super close to my heart.
Ooh, okay. We're doing this. We're gonna do a
Okay.
whole episode on that. I'm gonna email Jill. I'm gonna be like, let's set this up again.
Perfect. Perfect. I love
Oh,
it.
this is so good. Christina, where can we find you? Where can we get the course? Where can we engage
Yeah.
with you?
So Be the Queen, our next one, and this is a course we teach live. It's not pre-recorded video, so you get a lot of interaction from Steph and I. The course is both us teaching you live and then coaching and answering questions along the way. And the next one starts January 24th. So we're enrolling now for it, and we do limit it, so it fills up pretty quick. That's christinehassler.com/be the queen. And then my favorite social media platform is Instagram. That's where I am. Love-hate relationship, as we were talking about before we started recording. But that's where I am the most. And then if you just want to connect with me, just go to christinehassler.com. You can take my free coaching assessment.
I love that. And you have an amazing podcast as well.
Oh yeah, thanks. Yes.
You're like, oh yeah, I forgot about that part.
Yes, the podcast that you've been on. So the podcast is called Over It and On With It. And every Saturday I feature another expert thought leader, someone to share amazing advice and wisdom like yours truly. And every Wednesday is a unscripted, unedited, unproduced live coaching session with someone. So you really learn a lot by listening to the show, because I coach someone and then I unpack what I did.
Yeah, those coaching sessions are amazing, you guys. If you've not tuned into those, get your ears on those, because those are amazing.
Thank you. They're fun to do. And I've been amazed at the level of vulnerability that people come on and publicly share. It's just really awesome. And it highlights a lot of what Brene Brown says about like vulnerability is courage in so many ways. So I've been really touched by the things we've been able to talk about on the show.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you so much, my love, for coming on and sharing your wisdom. And I'm super excited for my audience to engage with you, consume your content. Oh, you're just such a light. So thank you so much.
Oh, right back at you. Thank you so very much. Thanks for having me on. Thank you for the awesome conversation. And I'm excited to talk about inner child stuff next time.
Yay, let's do it. All right. Thank you to everyone tuning in, and we will see you next week. Bye for now.